Good morning. My name is Donna Miller, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Purse Power. Purse Power is working to help women use their massive purchasing power to drive positive change. We believe that if women who make 80% of all purchasing decisions would choose to buy from the companies that actively promote women, and we would do that in mass, and if we could create a funding stream for better women's shelters in the process, that we could shatter glass ceilings and change lives. So that's what Purse Power is trying to do. We're in webinar format today, and we are going to be taping the program as we do each week. We've got about 90 episodes up on our website at pursepower.com under the Let's Share the Journey tab. You can register for any of our Friday sessions every Monday morning. We post it on our website. Many thanks to Amazon Business for sponsoring the program today. We sure appreciate it. We will be taking questions throughout the broadcast. If you will put them in the Q&A block, please. That's where we're going to be looking for them. And now let me introduce the highly accomplished Chris Costello. Chris is the head of worldwide strategic accounts for Amazon Business. Since joining Amazon in 2021, Chris leads the organization that drives all Fortune 1000 B2B business for Amazon. Her organization is responsible for the full life cycle of a deal, including offer development, sales, and specialist teams, as well as the go-to-market strategy for AWS. At Amazon Business, she created and is the executive sponsor for the Women's Advocacy Circle, and we want to learn more about that. Chris is a diversity champion and serves as a mentor for a variety of groups, including a business leadership, women's entrepreneurs, and veteran group. Prior to joining the executive team at Amazon Business, Chris was the vice president of business sales services for AT&T. At AT&T, Chris built and led a team of 600 across 5 million clients and managed a multi-billion-dollar revenue base. And that's where Chris and I got to know each other. She built a complex sales and product positioning organization that catapulted the company as a leading player in an emerging industry. She delivered solutions for large enterprise businesses and drove massive growth in strategic services. Chris completed the executive programs at Notre Dame, MIT, and Southern Methodist University, as well as Texas A&M. And by the way, Chris, I'm a Baylor grad. She also holds a BA from Shippensburg University of Pennsylvania. Thank you so much for being here, Chris. This is going to be an amazing program. So before we start, please give us an overview of your background. Tell us about your life and your career history and how you got to this place.
Sure. Well, most importantly is my husband and I, Jason, we live in New Jersey. We're both from this area. I've had roles that have taken me by airplane to just about everywhere in the globe, but we are, Northeast-based people, had a stint in Pennsylvania, and are happy to call ourselves from the Northeast. I've had a variety of roles professionally serving the Fortune 25, and I've had roles in product, technology, about half of my career in that area, because I've always needed to know how it's built. I also come from a place of customer obsession. So spending time with customers in technical sales roles, I've had business development positions, strategy. I led an acquisition. I did some private equity work, pretty much all P&L type roles where you're basically the CEO of your own business unit. And across my journey, each role has prepared me for the next.
Very good. Okay, so tell me about the experiences that best prepared you for your current role.
I'd say experience-wise, it's been about learning how to collaborate. Since I've worked for Fortune 25 companies, you can't be a bull in the china shop. You need to learn how to get along with others, bring them along for the ride. I've learned how to manage conflict, really large challenges, lead large-scale change, which is very, very hard, which involves culture change. And through all of these experiences, I think what I've taken most personally that's helped me to be a better person and hopefully a better leader is to learn over that journey how to be more comfortable in my own skin, which I wasn't quite there early on in my career. I learned how to be more transparent and accessible and to be the real me. And I've learned how to lead with empathy. And the one other thing that I wanted to mention is Donna and I did get to know each other back several years ago. Donna helped me learn along the way as an executive coach for me. So I'm so thrilled that we've known each other for so many years, and wanted to thank you for helping me along my career journey.
Oh, I can't tell you how excited I am for you. I mean, I think you're doing amazing things. And Amazon is a wonderful company. You're really at your top of your game. So congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
All right. So have you ever had to overcome any kind of gender-based barriers of any kind coming up through the ranks?
I have. I've been a woman in tech for my entire career, and many times the only woman, and many times I was the youngest woman and the only female at the table, at the working table, at the leadership table. I've learned how to make my voice heard, sometimes by way of interrupting your way into a conversation if need be, to make yourself heard. In a way, and I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but not to show fear, really not letting that negative self-talk get to you, and, you know, speaking up for what you think is the right thing to say. I have had some, even some examples that I'll share. One time I remember working for someone who purposely left me out of meetings because he was threatened by my knowledge. Not that I was a know-it-all and was going to dominate the meeting, but he made sure I wasn't in those meetings. And that was hurtful. Another time, my boss at the time had submitted myself and another man on the team for a promotion. And her boss, the senior leader, was brand new to the company. And so this guy didn't know us, right? He maybe met us once, but he needed to sign off on the promotions. The man's promotion was signed off immediately, no questions, no nothing. Mine sat on the desk for a couple of days. The promotion happened. It got over the line because I had a fiercely supportive, strong female leader. I don't know that she had to battle it out, but the fact that the man's promo was signed sight unseen when this gentleman didn't really know either of us. Ironically, years later, the senior leader had left the company and was trying to promote me for a job on his team. So I guess eventually I proved myself to him as well. But yes, gender bias is out there, and you've got to work to overcome it.
Well, one of the things you said struck a chord with me. So when women are feeling the imposter syndrome, or they're worrying themselves with the negative stories, to your point, how can they be courageous? How can they stop themselves in that moment and behave the way they want to behave in those settings?
I think we just need to remind ourselves that you were hired for a reason. Like, you were chosen for this job, and look at your own resume and look at your own smarts. I remember a role early in my career, and we all had a meeting with the big boss, and he was like, "Do you have any ideas for change?" And and I wasn't all that politically aware, I guess. And I was like, "Yeah, I got this idea, I've got that idea." I had just moved from a sales type job to a headquarters type job. And then after the meeting, some of the people pulled me out by the ear. They're like, "Why did you say that?" As if it was maybe going to create more work for them or what have you. And so I guess sometimes you need to be slightly politically aware, but you need to be confident and comfortable in your own skin.
Well, that's a really good point, because a lot of women stop themselves from saying things when they really should, right? To step up to be leaders. Good point. Really good point. Okay. Do you have any career regrets? Is there anything you wish you would have done differently in your career?
I would say I don't have a lot of regrets. I've had some amazing jobs. I've had incredible mentors and supporters along the way. If I were to step back and think about maybe one thing that I would advise other up-and-coming female leaders to really take a look at, is make sure when you're negotiating, especially for a job and a package, that you're really advocating for yourself. You shouldn't always assume, you should never assume that anyone doesn't have good intentions, but you shouldn't assume that everyone is going to do exactly what it is that you need to be done in terms of negotiating your package.
Well, and I read some statistics about women negotiating on their own behalf, right? And trying to get raises and things like that. And I know there's stories that people tell themselves about women that act like that and ask for raises, but there's something like 54% more likely to get it if they ask.
Yeah,
right?
Amazing.
Right.
Amazing.
I know. All right. Well, so if you had to think back to your 20-year-old self, what do you think you would have told yourself at that point in your career?
I would have said, you got this, girl. And I think of an example of at one point I was promoted to manage the team of people that used to be my peers. So I was an individual contributor on that same team. And then I was the one chosen to take on the team. And there were a lot of really smart people on that team. And in one of my first meetings, I remember saying something about a revenue growth plan. And I said, what did I say? I said, total revenue. This is what I said. I said total revenue plan instead of incremental revenue plan. And one of my former peers, and I was now his boss, said, it's incremental revenue plan, not total revenue plan. And this was very soon after the promotion. And he was right. And I felt silly. And he kind of came across as angry. Maybe he was feeling a little bitter that I was the one that was chosen for the job. And so maybe he wanted to kind of bring me down a notch. So I guess I would have probably said, don't fear other people's opinions. They chose you. You got this, girl.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Very good. We are getting a few questions and comments. So Jane is asking, do you find that women are more effective in handling conflict like that, for example?
Are women more effective at handling conflict? I think generally, yes. Women do lead a little bit differently. They seem to seek out other people's opinions. They don't always go for consensus. But I think the best way to manage conflict is to use data and use facts and speak from the voice of the customer, as opposed to who's got the best idea, so it doesn't lead to emotions and being opinionated.
Jeremy Solomons is out of Africa, actually, and he's asking, could you please talk more about resolving tension and conflict, particularly on diverse and intercultural teams?
I think it comes from a place of getting to know your team and understanding what is important to your team. I have a team of very, very diverse types of people, and it's really understanding what makes those people tick, what's important to those people, working with them one-on-one individually, and then seeing what the culture looks like as a team. I also try to do a good job of making everyone's voice heard. There are always introverts and extroverts and different types of, styles to teams and organizations. And one of the things that I try to do is to for the quieter people, as an example, or the people that might not be as outspoken, stop, ask them questions, and get them to participate.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Let's see here. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think the biggest challenges women are going to face in the upcoming years, given the pandemic, given the state of the world right now? What are some challenges you see on the horizon, and what do you think women need to do to prepare?
I think as I look to the future, there's going to be even more women at the leadership table. And so, we know what the stats look like today. I think we're going to improve even more. And it's almost like we need to prove ourselves even more. It's a bit of a hazing process. And so we have to almost work that much harder, but we're up to it. And so the biggest piece of advice that I can give to all the women watching is to make sure you have a strong set of supporters, both female and male, as you enter into your new assignment.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I think women need to support each other better than we have in the past. For me, I don't know about you, but it feels like we're doing a better job than we used to, but I think there's still room for growth.
I agree, Donna. The only formal mentor pairing I really ever had in my career until more recently was you. And that was because I was lucky enough to be part of being selected for a leadership program. But, back when I was coming up through the ranks, there really weren't formal mentoring programs. And even informally, you didn't really know if someone was mentoring you, whether male or female. And so I think it's awesome that women are doing a better job, and men, male allies, are doing a better job at lifting others up and starting mentoring programs. How do we lift each other up? Get a mentor, be a mentor, extending the ladder for others. I've seen instances, and I remember a woman that got promoted in a company that I worked in years ago, and she got the promo and she pulled that ladder up faster than you could ever imagine. And I don't know if it was because she felt threatened that she had gotten there, and maybe others would threaten her once they got there. But I don't see that often, but that's scary. I will tell you, in the last week alone, and this has been a crazy week, like breakneck pace, I've done 4 female mentoring calls alone for women that don't work in my organization, and I have another one this afternoon, and it's Good Friday, and I feel bad that I'm scheduling her on Good Friday to do that. So it's our honor, it's our duty to mentor women, coach women, lift them up, teach them how to network, teach them how to self-promote a little bit more, because a lot of women in our styles, we are not really big on self-promotion.
Right. That's a hard one, because we need to. I mean, and the other thing is we doubt ourselves. From what I understand, men will put themselves forward for a job if they think they've got 60% of the qualifications, and we won't do it till we've got 90, right?
I've seen that stat, yep.
A mindset thing. Okay, I know people are going to be more interested in learning about the mentoring and sponsorship, how they get a mentor, how they become sponsored, in addition to doing it themselves. How do they get into that pipeline, right, of getting that kind of support?
Yeah, I'll talk about how I've done it and then how I would recommend others do it. Yep. It's about building you can still hear me okay, I hope. It's about building a board of directors. And a wise person explained this to me earlier on in my career. So it's a mentor, and think of the mentor as someone that you can talk to about your career goals, someone that may help open some doors to some other discussions, someone that you can talk about how do I network better, resume writing, what projects I should take on. The second piece of the board of directors is a sponsor. And the sponsor is a person that will go to the ends of the earth and risk their reputation to literally help you get the job. And then the third part of the board of directors, which is probably the most important for you, not only professionally but personally, is the confidant. And the confidant is the person that is preferably not someone that you work with in your company. It's preferably someone outside of your company, but maybe has a similar role, so they know what you do. And you can cry to them when you have tough days, and they can lift you up, and you can talk to them about your most personal and your deepest, darkest fears. And I remember doing this once and calling my confidant. I was about to do a presentation to the CEO, and I called my female confidant who was in a similar line of work. And I said, I have stomach pains. I wonder what's up. She's like, Chris, you're presenting to the CEO tomorrow. I'm like, but I presented to, big ballroom audiences. I present to customers all the time. She's like, Chris, you're having stomach pains because it's the CEO and the entire board of directors. So I ran to Walgreens. I got my Pepto Bismol. I got through the night. And then as soon as the presentation was over, I couldn't eat. My stomach was in knots. As soon as the presentation was over, I had, I think, a huge bowl of pasta and some bread, and I just felt, amazing.
Chill out.
So
yeah.
The confidant's the one that you can confide in, is going to lift you up through the really, really tough times. At my company, we have something called the Women's Advocacy Circle, and I'm the executive sponsor of this program. I didn't create it. I, stepped into something that was already created when I got into the role. And we've more than doubled membership in the last year with the Women's Advocacy Circle. And it includes a formal paired mentor-mentee program. And so if you don't have something like that in your company, you can ask your manager Can you help me get, tied in with a formal mentor? Or maybe there's someone that you work with a lot. A lot of people do this with me, where we work together on a project and then they send me a quick note like, hey, do you mind if we get a little time? I think I really like your style. I'd love to get some advice from you. I will tell you, that is the happiest, most welcome call a leader would get is, hey, would you spend time with me talking to me about my career?
Oh, I love that. Well, I love that you're willing to do it. Some aren't as willing as you are, but I think that's major. And when you get to your level to turn around and help others up, that's fantastic. Good for you. Can you talk more about how women can advocate for both themselves and each other at work?
Yeah. One is, I'll go back to you better make sure you're negotiating for yourself, because nobody ever is. I'm not saying that people don't have good intentions, but you're in charge of yourself. I would say ask for the formal mentor, ask for regular feedback from your boss and your peers. Get that 360 feedback. Like, do I have blind spots? Do I have any fatal flaws? Is there something that I need to do better? Get exposure deep and wide, and make sure it's authentic. Like, it can't be this, like, I'm making and inventing this thing up to try to get exposure to people. Make sure it's close to your day job, and that you're sharing your best practices more broadly, and you'll get the exposure because you're sharing really good things that you've done and teaching others to help all tides rise. And then, just ask for the job. If you need a bigger team, ask for more team members. If you need an OpEx or CapEx budget increase, ask for it. Ask for the promotion. But make sure when you ask for all of these things that you've earned it. Nobody owes us anything. So make sure you've earned it. Make sure your work really speaks for itself.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've talked about this on the show before, that apparently on Obama's staff, there were 3 women. And what they did is they collaborated with each other to ensure that they got the credit, ensure that they were heard. You know what I mean? I've heard of women putting each other forward for awards, putting each other forward for recognition. And I think that that's something that we can also do, is collaborate, because we're good at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Yes. So to your point, you own it, right? I get it. You own your own career. And I think that we can also act on behalf of each other as well. Okay. And that's what that group is you're talking about. Yeah.
You just said something about 3 amazing women coming together to drive change. It's really ironic that you said that, because I have an example of like what a collective power can be. And it kind of goes back to the example that I shared earlier of the Women's Advocacy Circle, which is a program in my company. It was started by 3 awesome women in 2019, and they realized that a lot of other women needed help, and they needed mentoring, and they needed to figure out, how do I increase my network? How do I get promoted? What does the interview process look like? What do I need to do to be worthy enough to get the thumbs up to go after the next level or manage the team or what have you? And our Women's Advocacy Circle was founded by 3 amazing women, and it's been so successful. It's now global, and many people have been promoted as a result of joining the Women's Advocacy Circle. And so everyone wants to be part of this, and I just want to give a shout out to the 3 amazing women that started this in 2019. They didn't get HR help. There was no programmatic, leadership support. They simply sat down with a blank sheet of paper and a ton of ideas, and this thing is now scaled globally across our company.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, and it's surprising what you can do if you take things on like that, no matter what level you're at in the organization. I mean, I used to always say that she who comes in with a plan wins. I mean, if you got an idea like that, why not take it forward? Act on your own behalf. That's fantastic. Good for them. Is it a best practice that other people can see outside the organization and learn from?
It is, and we've been talking about doing a little bit more on LinkedIn. The people that are part of the Women's Advocacy Circle do have their designations on LinkedIn, but I do think it would be a great idea for us to start doing webinars like this, and that's something I'll take back to the board as an idea.
Share it. Yeah, we'd love to learn about it. That's awesome.
Okay.
That is awesome. Okay. Let's see here. So how do you think that we can use our collective power to drive positive change, both in our companies, in industry, in society? I mean, as you know, Purse Power is trying to use purchasing power to get that change done. What else can we do?
What else can we do to collectively drive change? I think it's the mentor-mentee example. It's, if I can fit 4 30-minute mentoring sessions on my calendar and I'm working at a breakneck pace, then all the women on this call can do that. Mm-hmm. Men can do this too. Men can become allies. We've got tons of allies in our women's advocacy circle. So those are just 2 really easy light lift examples.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, we do have some other questions here. Let's see here. What challenges and hopes do you have in the post-COVID hybrid workplace? This is Jeremy asking the question.
Challenges and hopes?
Yeah.
I think we would all resonate with the fact, maybe not all of you like hardcore extroverts, but the last couple of years has been extremely isolating, and people have gotten really comfortable with communicating just like this, right? Sweatpants on the bottom, blazer on the top, on video. And I've even personally found, as I've started doing lots more face-to-face, and I've got like a full week of client meetings in Vegas at a trade show event next week, it's draining. Mm-hmm. It's exhausting. And so I would encourage more and more people, and I think a hybrid workplace or a virtual office workplace is fantastic for many reasons, but I would encourage you to just get out more and start practicing your social skills. And getting used to interacting with people, because it's there's nothing more powerful, especially if you're in sales and supporting customers, than to be face to face. I mean, I would argue your sales results take you from 90% to 150% if you're doing work face to face. And so I think that's the number one kind of post-COVID piece of advice that I would give.
Yeah, that's really good. Tanis Cornell runs an executive women's peer coaching group, basically. And she's saying, have you ever participated in anything like that, a peer advisory forum, as a growth opportunity for you?
Well, the funny thing is, if this is the Tanis Cornell that I used to work with, which is a pretty unique name, I am pretty sure that she and I used to work together. So I'm so glad that I'm here so that she and I can reconnect. I have been part of those types of organizations at my old company, where we would bring a bunch of female leaders together to connect and network. I'm personally doing that for my company now in more of a business capacity, male and female, a customer advisory board. But it is definitely on my hot list to start a women's business board with the current company that I work with, because I've been part of these in my last company, and you make friends for life and you lift each other up, and it helps you network. And, maybe if you decide to make a change at some point in your career in the future, it helps you land your next job. And a good example is Donna and I, who met 20 plus years ago, and here we are. And we've not been in touch every day, even just through LinkedIn. And here we are, reconnected again.
Absolutely. I agree. And we all need that support. I mean, I think really people are looking for that network of support, and Tanis does a great job. So how do you think that we can, and this applies actually, how can women leverage our uniqueness to drive innovation inside our companies? And now we're talking AI as being part of that innovation.
It's interesting. We have something at the company that I work at now that when you log in every morning on your computer, it asks you a question. It's kind of like an ENPS-driven set of business analytics, and it gets compiled at the end of every month. And I think that my scores are not necessarily scores, comments, what have you, like certain areas that I probably get really high scores in. I don't know that some of the male leaders get the same scores. And, one of the things that we hear about our team is that the culture is really positive. And maybe part of that is because many women lead differently, right? And so I lead with empathy. Like, I start with, as much as humanly possible, not getting right down to business, right? What's going on in your life? How is your day going? You know, when someone's having surgery, I'm the first to send flowers. When someone's celebrating something, you know, we're the first to celebrate it. We do a lot of celebrating. We do a lot of listening. To the discussion we were having earlier, I think we work a little harder to try to get others on board. And so because of that, I think us females pick up on certain customer needs, perhaps in a different way, because we're listening, because we're leading with empathy, because we're looking to get others on board. And so my advice to all of you women leaders is to be, incredibly vocal about the voice of the customer so that you can drive needed change.
Yeah. Yeah, Chris, you're so down to earth. I mean, you are one of the most senior executive women in the country, and you still come across as very genuine and authentic and caring, that's fantastic. And I think more women need to do it rather than putting on some kind of act that there's something else, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see here. What advice would you give women if they wanted to break into your industry?
Yeah, I would say, unless you're a rocket scientist or a brain surgeon, you can break into a lot of different industries. I think, a lot of it's your attitude, your confidence level, your willingness to learn. But tactically, it's also, hire a professional to uplift your resume and fix your LinkedIn page and make it look a little bit more self-promotional. I remember the first time I hired a professional to do my resume, it was like 5 pages long. It was pathetic. It was like, I did product management. And the person that I hired kind of transformed it to make it look like I was the best thing since sliced bread. And she helped me to use language that was a little bit more self-promotional, whereas I was being super humble. So hire a professional to showcase great things you've done on LinkedIn, to help you with your personal brand and your resume to make it more quantifiable. Women, we need to self-promote a little bit more, not in a cocky way, but showcase your work. Be proud. There's lots of projects that you've worked on that you should be proud of and that you should showcase. I would say network like crazy. There's always someone that knows someone that knows someone that knows someone that is willing to open a door for you. It could be a friend, it could be a neighbor. It doesn't even have to necessarily be business people. And then, breaking into tech or other industries, research the company that you're going to be interviewing with and make, a really strong interest in getting to know that company, minimally doing a Google search of, who are their board of directors? Who's their CEO? What are their values? What are their core values? What is their core mission? What is their product strategy? And ask good questions on the interview and prepare for that interview as if it was the biggest, most critical customer presentation you've ever given in your career. And you can't roll right into representing your own personal brand. Even though you know the story about yourself, you still need to prepare accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you recommended the individual to me, and I think that I've recommended her to several other people, by the way. And you were doing it, I think, for an internal resume. You were going for an internal position, and you were having her work on it for that, right?
I was, yeah.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Yeah, she's excellent. She's excellent. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, now here's a big one. This is a really big one. And guys, please put any more questions you've got in the Q&A block. How do you balance work and life or integrate work and life? What are your strategies for that? Because it's rough.
It is rough. But, because there's the calendar is full of meetings that you need to be on from a business perspective. You want to balance that with spending as much of your time with customers as humanly possible as if you have a customer-facing job. You want to spend time with your team to guide and coach them. And then there's the the fire drill bombs that you didn't expect that are always part of a day where you have to drop some things to go and fix something else. And then, your husband is saying, it's time for dinner, turn that thing off, right? And so, a couple of things that I would say is some of these are just easy layups and some of them are bigger things. I have a company instant message application. And at first I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to put it on my mobile device, and it got to the point where I turned off the notifications. So it's still there if I need it, but the notifications are off so that after hours, I am not tempted to respond to a notification. Two, I block regular times on my calendar. And the dirty little secret is it's like the whole year, like those times are blocked. And I try to keep them sacred so that I have time to think and read and respond and breathe during the day and not just be on 10 hours worth of back-to-back conference calls. But also if I have to fit something in, there's like a little bit of a wiggle room. And I will tell you, I need to get better at that because people know about the little secret and sometimes bust their way into the open times. Bigger and more important for, to just soothe your soul is taking regular vacation. I think for a while I was like, oh, I don't have time. And I was like booking myself out work-wise and then didn't have enough time to squeeze in important vacations. And so like book the 2-week trip to Europe. Do it. Take the long weekends. Book it for the whole year. So you have that thing to look forward to and you're planning towards it. But while you're there, don't get on calls. I have seen peers get on calls while they're on vacation, like, ha, ha, ha. And everyone's like, oh, oh my. I think it sets a really, really bad example. And it just puts you back into adrenaline mode when you're trying to relax when you're on vacation. Now, I will tell you that I am guilty so that I don't come back to huge piles of mail. I may scan like the junk type email so that it's not massive. I remember one time I had a little getaway and someone had sent that email with the respond to all. How that once in a while that goes viral in a company.
Oh, gosh.
And then everyone says, stop responding to all, stop responding to all. Well, I'm glad I did log in that day because I had an opportunity to delete many, many, many emails that I would have come back to. But what I do is I make sure that if I see an email with a title that is going to emotionally charge me, I am not opening it. I refuse to engage. I have someone in charge for me. I'm not irresponsible. Even better advice, just don't look at email when you're on vacation. The last thing that I would say, and I know that some of you have had this happen to you, if work is the last racing topic you're thinking of right before your head hits the pillow, and also the first thing you're thinking of when you snap out of bed, you're having these racing thoughts before bed. If you wake up first thing, it means you probably were dreaming about it. We've got a problem, okay? It's time for you to do something. And so advice there, and I've done this type of thing as well, get a hobby, start planting things in your backyard, start pulling dandelions. Pulling weeds is a very gratifying thing. Get the Calm app and start using it for 10 minutes a day. Practice on breathing, do some yoga, turn your devices off at a certain time at night. Work does not define us. And if you're having racing thoughts right before bed or first thing in the morning, you've got to put a flag on the play and do something about it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That is a really good point. Annie Meehan is commenting about, great job. Healthy boundaries are so important. Are there any other boundaries that you set? You've named several, but just specifically saying, I will do this, I won't do this. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a few. I work for a company whose main headquarters is with a lot of the people that I do work with is in a different time zone. And when I first started, you're in the prove yourself 7 p.m. call, no problem, I'll be there. A call a call to align in time zones with our Japan counterparts? Sure, no problem. I'll be there. After a while, it got to the point where I was burning myself out. And so after a certain amount of time, I pretty much made a rule. I'm not doing calls after, X period of time. And so I'll work with the people, hopefully in a very harmonious way, to move the calendar invite to something that makes a little bit more sense for all parties, and or I'll have a peer or one of my team members represent me on that call, and it gets my team members actually really good exposure in the process as well to more senior leadership. So that's a boundary, the time zone thing. Another example, I remember one time, I had a boss that was calling me a lot after hours, and at one point, and one time it happened. This was a long time ago, but I remember one time it happened several times in a week. And my husband, who is I'd almost call feels like a famous chef to me, but he makes a lot of really good meals. And my boss was calling me for the fourth time that week, and he was cooking in the background, and boss was like, "Got a minute?" And it's like 6:30 p.m., 7 p.m. I'm like, "I have 5 minutes. My husband's cooking dinner. 5 minutes." So I don't care if you're the floor sweeper or the CEO, you've got to set boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I worked with a team as an HR leader that was, they had a boss that would text them or send messages late at night. They were all getting up at midnight to answer their emails and then go back to bed. You got to have some expectations too, as a boss, I'm sure, about what you expect from others and responsiveness.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I had someone, and I've lost the name here, who was asking about how we might engage the very senior women. And we've got a lot of folks involved with us that are senior executives, some that are just before retirement. And they seem like they'd be great mentors and great connectors and sponsors. Is there a way to engage them in this process? Any thoughts?
Well, I think that a lot of women that are in senior roles in business, some of them never had mentors, and they busted their way through. And, they, like me, can tell you some of their war stories that I won't get into in a whole lot of detail, given this webcast is going to be replayed. But, all of us need mentors, especially those that have been down the road, especially those that in some sense have paved the way. And in some of these types of discussions that I've had with women that I mentor, I share my vulnerabilities in more detail. I share, where I've been super nervous about this, or felt, very exposed about that, or, how I handled a peer coming after me. And I think it's just very important for women to hear from the ones who have started to pave the way. I was just as nervous before I got on the stage too, or, I had someone do this to me too. And then, all of a sudden, some more of these up and comer female leaders are like, it's not just me, and they feel more empowered and a sense of relief. And so, yeah, engage with, you can't cold call anybody in the world. Try to find someone that in some way, but ask for it. I think, many of the senior women that participate in this forum would be delighted to mentor you. I also am part of ACP, American Corporate Partners, and I mentor military spouses, and there's so many different programs that are out there to get paired formally with mentors.
Right. Absolutely. Well, the other thing that was occurring to me as you were talking is there's some people that want to look good and they're very self-protective of their image. And you generate trust, you engender trust when you let down your guard, when you share, and when you've had struggles. And, that's a lot more valuable, and people trust you, right, when you do that. Well, that's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, right. I remember. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go.
It just made me think of one time many years ago, I participated on a panel. Mm-hmm. It was internal, and it was sponsored by HR, and it was mentoring oriented. And like my true self, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I talked about something that I think felt real and connected with the audience. And I talked about a time where a client was judging me. I was up on stage. The guy was like playing with his phone. He was eye rolling. I was very young in my career, and I was about to give a talk to a big audience, and he was the most senior person in the room. It was an EBC, executive briefing. And you could already see he was disrespecting me with his body language. I gave like the best presentation of my life, in that one, and it turned out great. Another time in a panel with peers internally, I told that story to be vulnerable, to connect with the audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of my peers are like, something you wouldn't know about me is, I've traveled a million places. I'm like, well, that's just self-promoting. That's not vulnerable. That's not what the people want to hear. They want to hear you as a human being.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I spent 10 years of my career laying people off in the telecom industry. And the thing that's occurring to me as you're talking is the people that try to put on a great show don't get anywhere with the audience. The people in that kind of setting, when people are struggling and when there's a challenge and you're going through change and saying how they're really feeling, go a much farther way, right, with the audience. And back to the trust thing. It's important to do that. Be real.
Absolutely.
I don't know about you, but do you feel like the pandemic has impacted that? I feel like people are a little more willing to be real than they used to be. I don't know.
I think so. And maybe we have to be even more forward connecting this way, or have had to kind of break the ice, because you're not like walking past each other. So yeah, I've viewed it on video. I've viewed this behavior in instant messaging with like jokiness, funny pictures, talking about weekend plans. I mean, so when you come across as real and authentic and accessible and vulnerable, like people trust you so much more. And if you're a leader, they're going to deliver 150%. If they don't trust you, you're not going to get 90%.
Right. Very true. Okay, guys, ask any more questions. We've got about 8 minutes. I wanted to ask you if there's some things that you specifically want us to have learned from you today. What would those be?
Some of the things that maybe I would have told my younger self, which is don't be addicted to approval. Don't seek out approval. And don't fear other people's opinions. I think that that is key. Being authentic. I mean, you can move mountains with a team if you are authentic, and not in a fake way. Authentic means authentic. So it's got to be real. I would say women need to learn how to become powerful communicators as well. And so if you don't feel like you are, and you're an introvert, I'm a bit of an introvert, and I became a practiced extrovert. And so, take the training, force yourself onto the stage, prep, figure out how to become a powerful communicator on the stage, but then also in negotiating, as we talked about before, asking for what you want, making the business case. One is the approval and being authentic. 2 is mastering the ability as a female leader to be a powerful communicator will take you a long way. And then the last is, it is our job and our duty to extend the ladder for other women.
Yeah, I love that. And as you're talking, I'm thinking that negotiation, and particularly negotiating on your own behalf, I think a lot of women struggle with that. Did you ever struggle with it? And if you did, how did you change that?
Yeah, I did. Earlier in my career, I was like, I'm sure the boss is going to do the right thing for me in terms of whatever the package is going to look like, or whatever the job scope is going to look like. And then over the course of my career, I realized, and then you'd hear in conversation, the man negotiated. And I'm not just talking about salary, but like whatever it was, like he got something extra. I'm like, why didn't I do that? And so I've gotten better at that. I've gotten better at just being crystal clear on what my needs are, whether it be salary, whether it be vacation, whether it be scope of the job, whether it be number of people I need on the team to be successful, whether it be budget, whether it be org design. And so there's not a whole lot of shyness coming from me in asking those questions, but it took practice, and you have to do it with credibility. You can't just ask if you don't have a business case behind it that makes sense.
Right, right. Is there anything that you had to do inside your own head around your stories to be able to do this? Or is it all fact-based? You're making the case, you're looking at it as a business problem?
It's never just fact-based. It is building the storyline inside your head that you have the confidence to do it. It might be getting support from others, because maybe the ask is so big that other business units and functions. So you might, I wouldn't say back channeling, but more like kind of greasing skids with others to get them on board to make the case for what it is that you want to do. But then it is using data. It is using, this is the need of the customer. This is why this makes sense. And this is the revenue uplift. And here's all the benefits that go with it. So data is your friend. It keeps things very, very, very non-emotional, but that's not the only piece.
Yeah. Well, what I've found about it, women, is that they can negotiate all day on behalf of their friend or their sister or their colleague. We can advocate for them. We can push for them all day. It's harder when it comes to ourselves for some people.
So true.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, guys? Give it a minute here. So in terms of actions you want us to take, what actions should we take coming out of this?
I would say one is, if you don't have a mentor, get one. You don't have to send an email to someone awkwardly and say, will you be my mentor? It could be someone that you've worked with for a really long time. Like, hey, can I get 30 minutes on your calendar when it works for you and talk to you about some things? Get a mentee as well. Because even if you've only been in the work world for a couple of years, things that other women want to know. And so even if it's like a peer mentee relationship, you have things that you can impart on others. Another thing that I'd like the crew to take out of this is always be thinking about your personal brand, not in a self-promotion way, but what would other people be saying about you when you're not in the room? Right? And especially during rating and ranking time, would they say you could put anything on her shoulders, she's up for that promotion, you could put her anywhere on the chessboard, or would they say something different? So think about what that personal brand is, and then write it, visualize it, and embody it. And then the last is, let's say you're not happy in your role, or let's say you really hesitated on something that you really should have asked for a while. It's time to take action now. It's time to advocate for yourself. Don't sit in a job if you're miserable. Make a change, or if there's something that you need, it's time to build a case and ask for it now, and stop being afraid to ask.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, the other thing that occurred to me is there something that you do in addition to living this brand that you're talking about? In the marketing world, you'd actively try to ensure that people had that perception of your company. Is there anything that you do about that? I'm using the term marketing loosely, but around branding yourself.
Yeah, and when I first heard the concept of personal brand, I couldn't wrap my head around it. I was thinking logo, company, but it's maybe start with a 360. What is the perception of others around you? There's different things where you can even just send emails out to people. Can you tell me of these 30 adjectives, which are the top 3 that you would choose to describe me? Right? And you can just start to get some really quick wins to understand what your personal brand is. You can ask your boss, you can ask your peers, and then you can figure out what you're really good at, double down on that. And unless you have a fatal flaw, don't harp on weaknesses, double down on your strengths.
Oh boy, that is really good advice. That is really good advice. Play to those strengths. We try to minimize our weaknesses, and it's a lot more effective to play to your strengths. Good point. Yes. Great point. Okay, well, everybody's been delighted by this program. You're amazing. I'm so thankful that you're here. Thank you very much for doing this with me. I appreciate it. And thank you to
Donna,
Amazon Business. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, it's awesome. You're a wonderful company, and we want to support you. And of course, all of us are your customers. So,
and you both did a great job. And thank you for being such a leader in the women's space and in general.
Oh, thank you very much. All right. Well, okay. I just wanted to remind everybody that if you would like to support this program, please go to pursepower.com and there's a Let's Share the Journey link. You can check out all of our prior broadcasts and you can buy us a cup of coffee if you like. Please do like and share our social media pages. We appreciate it. Invite your friends to join us. We do this every Friday at 10 Central, and we put it up on our website every Monday morning, our guests for that Friday show. I appreciate your attendance today. Thank you again. And remember, everybody, Purse Power, we have it. Let's use it. Take care. Thank you. Hope to see you next Friday. Bye, Chris.